Hey guys, this is Anime Z, and today we're going to be doing the second part of what if DEKU had a hybrid quirk. Please like the video to help with the video's algorithm and subscribe. It's totally free and you can unsubscribe whenever you want. Thank you so much for the support on my first video. There's nothing much else I want to say in the intro, so without further ado, let's get into the video.
Slick talker since a jet. Winter time, all the time, ooh, yeah. Look at the way that I move, swag. Disrespectful and I'm rude, okay. I had cocaine in the school.
We resume this what if with the vote for class representative. The votes are a blow in Izuku's favour. He's already shown he's strong, dependable, intelligent, and calm. The deputy is also the same, as Yaoyorozu, who has shown versatility and intellect as well. After the press infiltrates school and Ida controls a crowd of students, DEKU still offers his position, but Momo gives hers instead. This is because she recognises that in cases of crisis, Izuku is more likely to be able to look after the class. This is because of his performance in the QUIRK apprehension test. Next up is the USJ. The students are excited to go, and when they arrive, they meet All Might there. All Might has still not given away One for All, meaning he still has at least 4 hours a day of hero work. This means that Aizawa goes back to school as was originally planned. They are walking into the center plaza when a black mist appears in their way, spewing out villains. All Might calls out to 13, telling her to watch the students, and rushes out to start fighting the intruders. 13 turns back to the students and starts giving orders, but by this time Bakugo, Todoroki, DEKU, and Kirishima have already left to help All Might. However, they weren't the only ones to act fast, and some of the small fry villains as well as Kurogiri had come over to face them. 13 tries to protect the students, but due to a lack of combat experience she is outwitted and seriously injured by Kurogiri, who manages to scatter the students remaining there. Ida is never told to escape and is sent to the shipwreck zone with Asui and Mineta. Kurogiri is about to kill 13 when he looks over to see how Shigaraki is doing. He instantly rushes over when he sees all the villain underlings have been defeated. About 20 minutes later, due to the mass of villains being defeated at the entrance, all of the zones have been cleared of villains and the students have met back up, excluding Ida. Ida had started to plan while spectating the other 4 students who were facing off against Inomu, Shigaraki, and Kurogiri. All of the students appear to be lightly injured, but All Might himself seems to be unscathed. However, the enemies remaining also seem to be untouched, except for some scarring on Shigaraki's neck. The war against Nomu begins, and All Might is being overwhelmed due to Kurogiri playing with their position. Bakugo solves this problem by flying up to Kurogiri's neck and slamming him into the ground with an explosion. Shigaraki attempts to touch Bakugo but is deterred by DEKU. He instead goes after Kirishima, and just as they make contact, he is saved by Ida using Recipro. With his remaining time in Recipro, Ida manages to spin kick the Nomu in the eye, which seemed to cause some distress. This allows All Might to regain dominance over the Nomu. Due to the situation leaving their control and entering the heroes, Shigaraki and Kurogiri escape, leaving Nomu there. All Might tells the 5 students to just sit back and watch how a pro does it, and reluctantly they do. All Might has to fight seriously still, but he doesn't have to pass his limit to defeat the Nomu. According to him, in his prime it would have taken 5 punches, in the anime it takes him 300, so to give him an idea of his strength, it took him about 250. The only real injuries are Kirishima's arm and 13's back, but there is no permanent damage and all of the villains are captured excluding Kurogiri and Shigaraki. UA High School were the clear victors here. In the build up to the sports festival, All Might decides on his successor. He was interested in Midoriya, Kirishima and Ida. Logic tells him that Ida is the correct option here. His quirk would make a great addition to One for All, and he's shown his ability both in the battle trial and USJ. Ida accepts his power humbly after All Might explains it to him. Ida is already much more athletic than DEKU was, he already has knowledge of how quirks work, and his admiration for All Might is less. This is what held Izuku back according to Gran Torino. This allows him to unlock full cowling at 3% by the sports festival. All this really does is make him slightly faster and allows him to throw punches. Now we skip forward to the sports festival. The sports festival begins and Midori is chosen to represent 1A. He walks casually up to the mic and pledges that all of Class 1A will give it their all, but he himself will stand atop everyone else. Midnight announces the obstacle course race and the festival begins. Immediately, it is clear that if this was a normal race, Ida, Todoroki and Bakugo would win, but as they come to the first obstacle that changes. Midori and Sero use this chance to catch up to them. As soon as he is in range of the leaders again, Midoriya uses his levitation to lift them up and drop them, putting him in the lead. He still finds the same piece of armor as in the original. Ida overtakes him in the stretch to the next obstacle, and Bakugo and Todoroki are not too far behind. As they reach the second obstacle, Midoriya levitates a piece of metal he took and uses it as a hover bar to cross over the chasm. Deku and Todoroki are pretty much tied by the end of it. Bakugo is in third and Ida is in fourth. By the minefield, those four are pretty much untouchable, guaranteed top 4. Bakugo and Midoriya have the option to pass over by air, and Ida and Todoroki can both just run over it. This turns it into a battle purely of speed. The first one to emerge from the tunnel is Ida, followed closely by Midoriya, then Bakugo, and finally Todoroki in fourth. All of the rest of the people who qualify are in the same order. In the changing rooms, Bakugo makes a declaration of war to everyone before storming off. Midnight announces a cavalry battle, and the teams are made fairly quickly. Kaminari is scared of the 10 million points that Ida holds, and Hatsume replaces him on Ida, Todoroki, and Yaoyorozu's team. Deku, who wasn't worth 10 million, is much more dependable, has a chance to choose his teammates, and he ends up with Uraraka, Tokoyami, and Tetsu. Bakugo's team remains the same as in the original. Deku's team maintains the same strategy and cannon to keep their original points, however they do manage to steal some from Monoma's team. Iida's team is successful in keeping the 10 million points as Bakugo had captured a lower point headband instead of the 10 million. The rankings are number 1, Team Ida, number 2, Team Midoriya, number 3, Team Bakugo, and number 4, Team Shinso. After Ojiro and Shoda resign their places, Kendo and Monoma take them up. Todoroki thinks about his performance so far and contemplates whether his ice is enough to win, however he still decides not to use his right side yet and tries to convince himself he can win with only his left. He goes to Midoriya, as in canon, to claim that he would win without his fire side, and he actually laughs at him. He tells him not to be stupid and that it's his quirk, not Endeavor's. Midoriya repeats his pledge to win before walking off. This makes Todoroki think. In the first match of the tournament, Deku doesn't even bother listening to what Shinso had to say. He just immediately picked him up with levitation and dropped him outside of the ring. The next match is Todoroki vs Zero, which ends up in the same way. This is followed by Hatsume vs Monoma. Hatsume still uses the fight as an ad, but the match is much funnier because Monoma doesn't have a viable quote to copy, meaning he is essentially a normal person. Ida faces Tetsu and speed blitzes him almost instantly. Aoyama vs Ashido goes the same way as in the original, as well as Tokoyami vs Momo and Bakugo vs Uraraka. Kirishima is up against Kendo, which is a very close fight, but he wins. Ida, Tokoyami, and Bakugo pass to the semi-finals before Deku vs Todoroki begins. Immediately, Deku begins to dominate the battle, being able to melt Todoroki's ice, and Endeavor's grinning in the stands. Deku rushes up to Todoroki, who is unable to halt his advances, and punches him in the face as hard as he can, using his levitation to keep him from falling all the way to the ground. After punching him a couple of times more through his guard, he yells at him to stop pretending to be weak and use his full quirk. As a response, Half and Half uses Fire Side to try and push him away, making Deku smile. They start to trade Fire Blast, the heat distressing everyone in the crowd and impressing Endeavor even more. Todoroki had made a shelter of ice to keep him from being lifted by Deku's levitation, but he had not noticed it melt due to the lack of experience using fire. This opening allows Deku to pick him up and drag him towards him. He uses Todoroki's momentum to slam him into the ground before threatening him by releasing a small amount of fire from his nose, at which point Todoroki gives up. In the semi-finals, Bakugo defeats Tokoyami, not by using Dark Shadow's weakness, just with brute strength. He didn't notice his weakness because he wasn't after Deku's team in the cavalry battle. This leaves Deku to face Ida for one of them to go to the finals. Deku starts the match off hot with an intense wave of fire, forcing Ida to dodge. Ida tries to run straight at him, but is shifted by another fire blast. However, Ida's speed allows him to get in close and attempt to kick Deku. Deku ducks this and levitates Ida into the air, launching him back. However, Ida uses an engine to stay in the ring. Ida cannot manage to get close enough to attack, so he resorts to activating Reciprocal. He gets close enough to Deku to kick him, and Deku is ready to dodge when he's surprised by Ida throwing a punch using full cowling. This throws Deku off balance and allows Ida to land a kick as well. Deku's more than startled, and he gets picked up and driven towards the edge of the ring. However, just as he is about to fall out, Ida stops. Deku had been using his breath to melt Ida's engine, thinks fast and swivels, throwing Midoriya to the other side of the ring. However, whilst he's in midair, Midoriya uses levitation to throw Ida out of the ring. Ida landed with a thud, and then Deku did on the other side of the ring. Since Ida fell first, the win was Midoriya's. This meant that in the finals, Midoriya would be facing Bakugo. Uraraka tried to approach Midoriya, but was stopped in her tracks by his ferocity and focus. Kirishima had the same problem talking to Bakugo. Both boys were intent on proving themselves to be better than the other, and the atmosphere was tense. Even as they walked out into the stadium, Bakugo's palm glowed and the air was waving due to Deku's heat. Nonetheless, both boys were grinning from ear to ear, excited to test their growth. So it might have been smart, Deku didn't want to fight a long-range battle like he did against Ida. Both boys rushed towards each other. Bakugo threw the first punch with a heavy right hand which Izuku slipped, hitting him with an uppercut to his gut. Bakugo pretended to fall to the floor and swooped Deku's legs. Bakugo uses the opportunity to fire off an explosion, but Deku rolls to the side and blasts fire at him. He then throws him into the air and attacks him with fire before leaping up and smashing him down. Deku begins to completely dominate the fight until Bakugo gets up and asks a question. "Have you noticed how hot it is, Deku?" Bakugo chuckles. This catches Deku off guard. Bakugo grins and says, "He makes me sweat a lot, Deku." He launches an explosion around the size of what his gauntlets could produce, which puts obvious stress on his arm. Aizawa, Midnight and Cemento start to worry. Deku's clothes have been mostly burned now, and some of his skin has a dark brown complexion from burns. However, he refuses to back down. Deku notices Bakugo about to release a second one of these explosions from his left arm, so in response he uses levitation to turn Bakugo so that he's parallel to the ground and he shoots up into the air. The recoil, along with gravity, slams him into the ground. The fight continues again. Deku, in a rush to end it before Bakugo can charge another one of those explosions. The battle continues for another 5 minutes before both boys are exhausted and covered in burns. Bakugo is finally prepared to fire off his last explosion at gauntlet level. As he's focused on releasing it, Deku uses levitation to push him as hard as he can, giving him an intense migraine. After the shot goes off, Deku is laid out unconscious. Bakugo looks down to see he's out of bounds. Izuku Midoriya wins! So that will conclude the second part of What If Deku Had a Hybrid Quirk. Tell me something you liked about the video, or something that I should improve on for the next part in the comments. I saw a lot of your petition to give Deku one for all, so after this video is released, I'll give you an option on a community poll to vote for Deku to have it instead of Ida, and then I'll redo this part. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, folks. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!